Ian, welcome, bro.
What's going on, buddy?
Nice to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, obviously we're a mortgage company, but I figured I bring you in here as, someone who runs a business and who's also a professional in the health and wellness space and the bodybuilding world. We linked up, what has it been? Almost 11 months ago.
Yeah, something like that.
January?
It's been close to that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was cool. I kind of came to you guys at a loss. The reason I came to you in the beginning was more so just because, I feel like with most professionals, they find that, they dive into work so hard that everything else just takes a complete dump, right? Your social life takes a dump, your relationships takes a dump, your health,
your wellness, all of it.
Everything.
Yeah.
And I was at a complete loss. And even though I had done it years ago, right? I had done school, job, I competed at the time.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like at the time I had balance as well, and I started talking to Andrew a little bit.
Yeah.
And he kind of, brought me to you guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like life. I mean, really, it's, I don't compete anymore. I used to compete, but it's just not in the cards for me anymore. You have businesses, life happens, you get a girlfriend, you get a wife, you get a house, you get, whatever. And like all these other things, they sort of go into it. So it's really just finding, a good balance of everything, to be able to handle the day to day, to find just time to make it, somewhat of a priority. But I remember when you came in and, you knew, one of our head doctor, Andrew Shahada, and introduced us, and it was really just getting back into it. It's not necessarily that you did it before and that's great, and that's majority of our people, and majority of our people are also entrepreneurs such as yourself that essentially they have a deep dive into everything that they're committed to in terms of business to help themselves grow, but they let everything else to the wayside. And also there's certain lifestyle components that people start incorporating, whether it be, lack of sleep, more stress, poor diet choices, lack of exercise, just all these different things that start affecting you internally as well as externally. Yeah. And so it's cool to be able to have the ability to figure that all out and get some lab work done and hearing everybody's story and just to be able to manipulate little things in order to get them back on top so that they're functioning at 100%, not only in their business, but throughout the rest of their lives as well.
Definitely. And I think what's good is too, like the whole setup of your business, right? Where, you handle the initial calls, you handle the blood work and the panel, and then you have Phil who does all the dieting and who sets up all the training. Yeah. Right. And, me and Phil Star was a little rocky at first, but I think once I just accepted that I can't go over my macros, I can't overeat, and I can't stress eat, and and every day compounds on another. Exactly. So once I just accepted everything, the whole journey just got a lot easier. Yeah. Not to say that I don't mess up or
Of course. I mean, we're human. We're human, you know. And, I was telling Tyler just before, but essentially, it's good when we have a goal that we start training up for, but then once that goal happens, everything sort of falls on the wayside. So that being said, the idea is that you want to create some sort of a discipline. You want to create some sort of a lifestyle. So it's not necessarily setting these unreasonable expectations or macronutrients that you can't hit all the time. You sort of want to be within a place that you could have small victories every day. Yeah. Every day I have this small victory, and I'm only focusing on the task at hand for this day. I'm not looking at the big picture. I'm not looking at the fact that I made up this number of 30 pounds that I need to lose, and I'm not there yet. It's been 2 weeks. I feel like I've been good. Could I have been better? Yes, but I should have lost more. And, this, I just want to quit. You want to be able to sort of avoid that expectation on yourself. So it's creating that little thing. And of course, again, we're human. So, there are going to be mistakes. We have that wedding. We want that night out. We have that hot date. There's things that are going to happen, but that doesn't mean that just because you make one mistake, everything else should fall off. Get back to your regimen, have that discipline, make sure you're exercising. I also believe that there's, 3 areas essentially of wellness, 4 areas. So it's your sleep, stress, supplementation, exercise, and nutrition, 5 areas. But if you're not following all of them 100%, that's okay. But if you're, following most of them 100% when you know that you can for one of them, like going on a vacation. So I'm going on vacation, but I'm not going to eat well, but I know I'm going to exercise. I'm going to take my supplements. My stress is going to be down and I'm going to be able to sleep, then you're still in pretty good shape that you could bounce back when you come back. I think to reality.
I think that's like that's also the most important thing, right? Being able to incorporate your day to day, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you deal with mostly entrepreneurs, and most of our meetings actually happen outside of our day to day, outside of business hours,
all the time,
right? Because we're going to dinners, we're going to breakfasts, we're doing things to interact and meet people and be social. Yeah. And I was just talking to my buddies about it the other day. Everything we do, whether it be with your girlfriend, your friends, your family, has to do with eating and drinking.
Yeah, everybody.
Right, and so it's hard, especially when you're going out to eat, and everyone's drinking, everyone's eating, everyone's kind of enjoying yourself, and you're kind of sitting on the sidelines, almost just like, I gotta watch that. I can't have that. Yeah, because I'd rather save it for this. And you start almost calculating everything
in your head. Yeah. Which is, sometimes it could be healthy. Sometimes, thoughts like that could get, super unhealthy, but it still is, a fact of the matter. I mean, the problem, a lot of it is the way society teaches us things, I remember when I was prepping for shows, and again, that's an excessive side. That's on a totally other level.
That's a full-time job.
That's a full-time job. But, I had friends that, I'm still friends with today, but they weren't talking to me during the time when I first started competing until they saw how successful I was at competing. Yeah. They sort of wouldn't call me anymore, didn't want to do anything, because it was just, for me, I'm the weirdo that doesn't want to drink or doesn't want to eat out or doesn't want to do anything because I have this goal in mind.
Do you still do that? Do you still not drink? Do you still?
I don't really drink. I'll have a drink. I could probably count on one hand how many times a drink that I have a year, and it's usually paired with a nice steak if I go out to a dinner or something like that. I never really liked the feeling of being drunk, to be honest. It was probably the only drug that I feel is the only thing that makes me lose control of myself. So I just didn't like that feeling where it's, if you drink too much, then you're sloppy or you look like an idiot or you wake up feeling like the next day, and it just ruins a lot for me. Not only that, the effects of alcohol, it makes your body produce more estrogen. I definitely don't want more estrogen. It stops the body from absorbing nutrients, period. So any micronutrients that I'm eating, any vitamins that I'm taking, any of that, it stunts your absorption of it. So there's just a lot of things.
So it's a lot more harmful than we.
It's funny because it's like the legal drug. Alcohol is a drug, but it's way more harmful than people actually think, and it doesn't do anything for me that I really enjoyed it. But occasionally, a nice scotch, or sometimes mezcal or tequila with a nice steak or whatever, I'll do that. But probably 5 times a year I have a drink.
Does your girl, does it bother her at all, or?
No, not at all. I mean, sometimes she used to, say I wish that we could go out just to have a drink. I was like, I'll go out and eat with you. I'd much rather eat my calories than drink them also, 100%. Which is another thing. But it doesn't really, she's not a huge drinker either. She tries to pretend because there's social situations, but literally every time we go out and we go have a drink, she's just done. If she has a glass of wine, she's done. She's sitting at the bar yawning, she's just like, I'm just ready to go home, this stupid wine, Yep. And I keep telling her, I'm like, wine produces a hormone in our body called tryptophan, which makes you tired generally. And it's like, you want to go out for a night, a nice glass of wine and a drink or, whatever, but it's you're going to want to go to bed after. It's just normal.
Since you understand the body and you understand, how food and what they put in food does to your body, do you feel like it manipulates you in the way you go about your day to day?
Sometimes. What the thing is that, again, I'm not competing anymore. That was to the extreme. Right now, I eat more intuitively. I meal prep all week long. On the weekends, if I go out to dinner, I'm okay eating something else. I go out with some of my friends who are within the same lifestyle, and I'll be the first one to be like, yo, let's get dessert. I just want something with my espresso. Yeah. And I don't really care. But I'm also the person that if I order a dessert, I'm going to have 2 bites and I'm going to feel satiated, and I'm going to be like, I'll push it away. I don't need, that's just me in general. I'm okay having something, but I'm not gluttonous. I've never been gluttonous. And one of the things that I always teach people, if you feel like you can't necessarily, you want to be able to enjoy food, the first steps before dieting, I always tell people, listen, if you have a plate of food, eat your protein and vegetables first, have your carbs after that, and practice a push away. Just because the food is there, that doesn't mean you need to finish the plate. Push it away. If you're satisfied, push it away.
I think that was my biggest like weakness, right? Because I was always taught like, you know, growing up, finish your food.
Finish your
plate.
I know.
Right? And I hate wasting food.
Yeah.
I hate it. Right? So,
but it doesn't have to be a waste. You know, sometimes I'll go out and I'll purposely know, okay, I'm getting this and this. Now I have lunch for tomorrow. You know, like.
It's a good thought. You know, because my girlfriend usually, you know, when we go out, you know, she's not a big eater, right?
Yeah.
So we can't. So I know now that like I can't order appetizers with her because she'll never eat it, and I'll be the one eating the whole app, and then she'll finish maybe like 3/4 of her dinner,
and then you'll finish that,
and then I have the rest. So it's more like now, like, you know, I've also learned with her, like, since that's the route I usually take, to, you know, split things up. Don't order the app. I'll get something smaller myself because then I'll finish off hers. Right, which, you know. Which I think helps the journey a little bit more.
For sure. I mean, my wife's not a huge eater either, but we enjoy trying different things. So basically what we do to, you know, play off of that is essentially we'll order a bunch of apps so that we could try everything and we'll be able to finish those, and then we'll split a dinner. Generally.
That's a good idea too.
Yeah. Because the apps are always, you know, like a dinner's good, it's the bigger portion or whatever, but there's always so many, you know, like tasty apps on everything. You know,
sometimes it's better just to kind of go for the apps because you have a little bit more variety.
Yeah,
and you're good off
that. Exactly. That's why I sort of like that, because we both like food. So to be able to have, you know, 4 to 6 apps on a table and all different variety of things, and, you know, going to a Greek place, like, I want the hummus, but I want the octopus, and I want this, and I want that, you know, and it's like we get to have all that, and they're smaller portions, and then we split a dinner, and whatever's left, I take home for lunch.
So it's, at the end of the day, it's really just being more mindful about like what you're eating.
And, exactly. And I'm still I'm enjoying whatever it is I want to enjoy. We go out to dinner I mean, I don't have a kitchen right now, so we're eating, you know, out a ton.
Oh, you just bought a new home. Yeah. Dude, congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but so we do, you know, we tend to go out to dinners on the weekends. Again, I order meal prep service all week long.
Where do you get your meal prep from?
So I was getting Redefined meals here in New York. It's great. I did get a little bit of sick of it just because it was literally since May repetitive. They actually just updated their menu. I just saw yesterday.
They got rid of the Caesar wrap, which Redefined I'm unbelievably mad about. You need to bring that back.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
So they just updated their menu. So I actually just ordered from them yesterday because I forgot to order from the other place. But we did Redefine. I did some other place, which I didn't like. I don't even remember the name of it. And then we were doing Hummus Fit Kitchen, which is out here on Long Island as well. And then I just went back to Redefine because I forgot to order.
I feel like out of all the places, though, I think Hummus has really good meals, but I found that their macros were off by almost a 10-15% variance.
Oh, yeah?
And I thought Redefine was almost spot on. Once I made the switch from Hummus to Redefine, my weight started to fall off.
Oh, yeah.
And once we adjusted, just because...
That's interesting. I didn't even realize. I didn't even think about it. You know, I should because I'm ordering all these meals, but I exercise and I move enough that I feel like I'm burning off.
Are you doing cardio now too, or do you just?
I do cardio, not intensely. I'm just a proponent of it because now I'm 34. My grandfather died of a heart attack. I know my dad's on, you know, a bunch of statins and things like that. There's high blood pressure in my family, so for me, cardiovascular exercise is not necessarily for weight loss. It's just for the fact that I need to strengthen my heart.
What do you think is like, if someone's sitting at the desk on the day to day and they're not moving around for 7-8 hours, what's a good amount of cardio they should be implementing a week?
I mean, just to start doing something from nothing, you know, and then sort of feeling your body from there. So if you're really just sitting around, you want to, like I said, you want to set an obtainable goal. So my obtainable goal would be to, you know, I want you to do cardio twice a week after your lifts if you are consistently lifting. Start with 20 minutes, but keep your heart rate at 130 consistently for the 20 minutes or above. Now, if you're warming up and it's not at that 130, that doesn't count into your 20 minutes. So maybe it's 30 minutes of cardio. Who knows, until you warm up and get into that beats per minute.
Got it. So it's 130 for 20 minutes, and that's cardio.
And that's cardio.
That's what you would define as
just stress on the heart.
Got it.
In a positive way.
And so you mentioned before that that you got into bodybuilding. How long were you bodybuilding for?
I was bodybuilding for since I was from 22 to 28.
So 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years. I did take a little bit of a hiatus. I had an incident happen that stopped me from competing for a little bit, but that was when I opened my first gym, so I just dove into into that. And then I came back and I was kind of all banged up, but I really just wanted to prove that I could get back on stage and do well again. And
how many shows were you doing a year?
At the time, I was doing probably 4 to 5 a year.
4 to 5 a year.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So you pretty much just stayed in shape.
I was in shape all year long.
All year
long. Yeah. I used to be able to, all year long, I could hold a pen in between my abs.
That's crazy.
Like literally just be able to, yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
How do you feel like did it take a toll on your body in any way?
For sure. Bodybuilding, Wednesday I have getting body work done. I still do PT. I still have all these things that sort of, I was always a huge athlete and by athlete, like very athletic, like I could do crazy things just in general, any sport, any whatever, I could pick it up.
Did you play sports as a kid too?
I did. I played sports. But bodybuilding was a sport in itself, but everything that bodybuilding taught me essentially almost ruined my athleticism. I couldn't, jump the same way. I couldn't do, fast twitch muscle type things the same way. I couldn't roll or box or do whatever the same way. Like everything just sort of faltered because I got just so like stiff and mongoloidish. So it was still great. I loved it. It helped me build my brand and helped me, learn everything that I know now. But there are repercussions and injuries and things like that, because I was also at a very high level. So I just pushed through everything. And so there's a lot of things that I'm dealing with now physically that I'm just trying to heal from.
What was kind of like your segue into like the business that you have now?
So I was always a coach. I was always a trainer.
Even while you were competing also?
Even while I was competing also. I started that when I was 18. It paid for all my schooling. It helped me, just make money, get through life. I worked from, boxing gyms to, regular weight training gyms. I worked in a club in Queens I was a manager of, and Bally's when they used to exist. And then eventually I moved to the city and I worked at Crunch. I went to the city to take more business classes. And I Googled, I moved on to, I was in 88th and Amsterdam, 88th and Broadway on the Upper West Side. And so I Googled, gyms on the Red Line. And there was an Equinox and there was a Crunch. And so I applied to both of them. I got both the jobs, but I picked to work at Crunch because it was more my pace, because it was just, I could slam weights and not feel bad at Equinox. I couldn't do that. I agree. And that's where I met Phil. This was
at Crunch?
At Crunch, yeah. And yeah, so I started working there. I was competing. I started coaching Phil. I started coaching other people.
Was Phil your first client?
Phil was my first men's physique client, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and our first show, we took 4th place. I've never had a person compete on stage that didn't walk away with the trophy.
So just a side question real quick. What was your background, right? So like I remember when I was doing it, like when I was 18, 19, what was that? That was 2016, 17 maybe.
Yep.
And at that time bodybuilding was like really coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Bodybuilding.com, was really just taking off in that last 4 years from 2012, 2018. And you had everybody and their mother being a coach, right? You had all these guys that really weren't qualified, making cookie cutter diets, and they, and just giving the same diet, same supplementation to everybody. Yeah. Right. With zero thought of like what could happen to this person. Yeah. So like what was your background? What was your qualification that, that gave you the success that you had?
One, I think the best qualification that I had was personal experience, because I was always a guinea pig for myself. So I knew the things that worked, I knew the things that didn't work, and I knew from personal experience that if someone else was experiencing something that I have gone through, there was no better way for me to fix something because I had already gone through it. But when I was 17, before turning 18, I took a 6-month course at Hofstra, the AAPTE, so it was nutrition and training. It was a 6-month course. It wasn't accredited, but it was still, you got your first certification. It was just an intense training course that Hofstra offered. So I took that when I was 17, turning into 18, and that's what got me started. And then I just took more certifications for that. I studied at school. I did, studied sports medicine. I studied nutrition, chemistry, nutrition. I did all those things.
So you lived and breathed this. This was
all this. Since I was 18, it was just something that I was always, passionate about.
Since I was really heavily involved in getting myself into shape, competing, and doing all that. My whole goal goal was like, I want to run a massive, personal training business. Yeah. And I did okay for for a couple of years. And I think after I competed, it was really hard for me to, to even consider like taking care of myself while taking care of other people. So, because you eventually just lose the love for it, right? Because you're training yourself, you're training other people, you're going home, dieting, coming back to the gym, doing cardio later on.
Yeah, I have a whole story about that.
You're in it.
Yeah.
So how did you just keep it up, right? You're almost 19 years in the game.
It was really just trying to level up to the next thing and new experiences. I remember I did take a break once from training. And it wasn't a long break, but then, I started up again, but I just needed time off. I needed time away from the space. This is maybe 6 months. This is back when I lived on Long Island still. But yeah, I mean, no matter what, I just always cared about myself. So I just knew how well that I could do for myself. I always liked being an athlete. I always liked working out. So I couldn't stay away from it for long. And then when I started training other people, one of my specialists always was I was, a physique manipulation coach, essentially. That's what I sort of made myself that. I first wanted to be a physical therapist, and the reason that I didn't end up liking physical therapy was that you never consistently saw people get better. What I understand about physical therapy, because I still do physical therapy literally daily before I go work out, I have to do all my warm-ups and exercise and things like that. But if you are not doing it on your own every single day, you could go to I could go to the physical therapist twice a week, do my exercises there. But if I'm not doing my homework, if I'm not being consistent, if I'm not changing what it is that I need to change, you're not going to get better. If you do all the right things, you will get better. But you have to stay consistent to it. And it's literally every single day, no matter what. I leave 30 minutes before every workout for me to do my PT warm-ups, so that this way I could actually have a productive workout where I'm feeling the things that I'm supposed to be feeling without feeling hurt. But that being said, the fact that I didn't see so many people changing or getting better, I hated it. But training, I just always had a knack for, and listening to people. And I always told people that I wasn't the coach. They were the coach. They knew their body better than I did. I have the knowledge to be able to react to things that you're feeling. And that's always sort of how I played it. And I just had a knack for it. I was just very, very good at that. So I was able to change bodies in a safe way. And the feeling and the reactions that I got from people, it was almost no greater high. It was something that I genuinely loved for other people when they would, I get text messages or I get photos or you see them in person or, and it wasn't even about the PR of lifting heavier. It was like they physically just, I hate how I look. I want to change. And we did it. So that was always my favorite thing. So that kept me in it long. When I started competing religiously, I had a lot of success in it. I was very fortunate. My first 2 shows, I did not have a lot of success in, but I just kept at it. And actually, so my first show, I took 8th place.
It still isn't bad. How many people up there with you?
I think there was like 12 or 13. And I took 8th place. I was furious because I've also never done that poorly in a sport. I was always like a winner, and I always just, you win. And then second show, got ready for it also, but I wore this like goofy ass long white board shorts. Like I just looked sloppy on stage. And then I took 6th place, and then I was furious. I was like, what? I need a break. I was living in the city at this point. And then I trained Phil for a show, and then I was training my friend Shanta for a show. She's a figure competitor. And she was getting ready for her first show, the Brooklyn Grand Prix, and she had no muscle. And I was like, listen, we need 9 months to get ready for the show. 9 months of us training. We were training 3 days a week, and just controlling everything. And there was 11 weeks left until the show, and she looked phenomenal, and she got scared. She's like, I don't think I want to do it. Like I got my goal. Like, I look great. Like maybe we should postpone it, or maybe this, maybe that. I'm like, you know what? That's not happening. You're ready. We're going to compete together. So I started prepping because I took a break all summer, like another, 5 months. So
you did a 3-month prep to hop on stage with your client?
Yeah. And we both training together, doing all that, getting ourselves ready. And we get to the show, and she goes up first. It's her first show, so she did the novice category. First call-outs, she's dead center, gets sent off. Then they do the open category. First call-outs, dead center. So the way that, if people don't know, dead center usually means first place. So it's usually the top 5, and the person who's close to the center is first place. So She did her novice, dead center, open, dead center. Then I went dead center also. Okay. We get off, the night show comes, and that's where they announce who's first, who's second, blah, blah, blah. So they did the novice call-outs. She gets first officially. Then they do novice overall, which means that every height category competes against each other. So usually you compete against the people that are your height. Yep. So that this way it's easier. Within the category, it's a lot more fair to judge. She gets first place overall in novice. Then open comes, first place open. Then it goes overall for open. She gets first place. So right now she has 2 first place trophies in each. Then I go first place men's physique, category A.
Was it 3-month prep?
Yeah.
What was your shape? What was your shape of like?
I mean, I was still training prior to that. I still always felt that if I need to look a certain way for people to respect what it is that I have to say to them. So I always stayed in somewhat shape.
So it was always easy for you just to kind of get right into it.
But I was at a different level this time because I was just still so butthurt in my last 2 placings. I was like, so I was still butthurt. So I was still, regardless of the shape that I was in, I took things up to a notch that, it needed to be at a pro standard.
How many days a week were you training?
I was working out 6 days a week, essentially. Body part a day, abs twice a week, and
what was your cardio like?
So my cardio, this was always, me living in Manhattan, this was always consistently my cardio. I had a backpack. I was in school, so I had all my textbooks. I would put extra ankle weights in my backpack. And I worked at Crunch on 38th Street. I lived on 88th and Broadway. And I would walk to work, winter, rain, snow, whatever, every single day, twice a day. So I would do at least 100 to 150 blocks of walking a day in Manhattan with like about a 60, 70 pound backpack.
Sick.
Yeah.
That's a grind.
Yeah. So that's what I did literally every single day. And so I took first place in open. Overall comes, I took first place in overall. So we literally swept the whole show in our categories.
That's awesome.
And it was just such an insane moment for both of us. The amount of people that came to support us was wild. There was literally, everybody was screaming. They had all these like Shanta faces and stuff like that. That's cool. It was insane. It was a great feeling. And I was just addicted to that feeling as well. And so I just kept going. And then more and more people, as my brand came up and my name came up, more and more people wanted to work with me. And then the way that I did things, I wasn't like a coach where I want to take on as many people as I possibly can. I actually limited the amount of people that I could take on. I would turn people away so that I could focus exactly on the people that were in there. I would charge a lot more, but you got my undivided attention. Yeah. So then I just sort of grew from there. And I loved every bit of it. And then I had an accident in 2016, and that they actually just announced Classic Physique then. Not 2016. Yeah, 2016. Right? What are we in? 23? Yeah, something like that.
Classic Physique. That was where the shorts were
above
the knees.
Yeah, above the knees.
I think it was a little bit after that.
Yeah, because 2018 I came back to compete. So it was around 2016, 2017 where they announced that. I had my accident, and then I just opened my gym. I left Crunch. Basically, with Crunch, I was like, a master trainer, and really all that means to them is that you're able to sell.
Yeah.
And they were taking 75% of my paycheck every single time. And yeah, the good part is that you have an access to a gym of people, but I actually never took anybody from the gym. Everybody came to train with me because they wanted something specific. I had people from Connecticut coming. I had people from Long Island coming to the city. I had people from PA coming from, to the city and stuff like that, and everybody from all over. Other trainers that were coming to train with me and stuff like that. And then there was times where they asked me to take, people at the front desk, like, oh, this person wants to train. I was like, I don't think that they're going to be the right fit for me, essentially just because our goals don't align.
And that's cool. You got so busy that you were able to be selective and pick who you wanted to work with.
Yeah, and even when I wasn't so busy, I still tried to be that way because there was only a certain type of clientele that I wanted because I wanted results at the end of the day. I wanted them to have results. I wanted them to want to have results. So that was the type of people that I needed to.
So that's kind of like how you kept yourself sane throughout the last 18 years.
Yeah.
It was more so like, if you saw someone wasn't going to work out within the first 4 weeks or even by the initial conversation, you would kind of just...
I would just say I would recommend them to someone else. There was so many other hungry trainers that were, ready to get money. They just wanted to get their commissions up and sell packages. And for me, it wasn't it was about finding the right clients that meshed with me, and had the similar goals. Whether it be I was training powerlifters or bodybuilders, or women getting ready for their like wedding, or there was a specific goal in mind. So that kept me relatively happy and motivated. And then, but eventually I was kind of just like, all right, I opened a gym, and then essentially I was just anybody could come in and pay me, a flat rate. You could train your clients, do whatever it is that you want to do.
What gym was this?
So it was called the Fit Space on the Upper West Side. And it's still there today. I had a partner, Rich, and Rich is still running it now. I left after COVID. And then I had another gym in Queens called The Dungeon, which I owned with my coach, Oscar, and that we shut down after COVID. But yeah, and I just started having people come in, and it just sort of took off, and I had my own private space, and that's all I really needed. And I just, kept growing and growing and growing, thankfully. And then in 2018, I was, felt that I was healthy enough to try to get ready for a show again. I had to lose a ton of weight because I was trying to bulk up to do different category, but I also wasn't training the same way because I was hurt. And after that, was able to compete, took second place at a show. Then went to Miami, and I got crushed, but I actually wasn't really upset. Miami's a national show. It's a very high-level show. But I wasn't too upset because I was in a bad place, so I didn't think that I was going to be able to actually get in that type of shape again.
So you really did it, though, just to kind of challenge yourself.
Yeah.
So you did it more so for yourself rather than to smoke others.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I did well on my local show. I went in there, and I applied for the national show right away. And at first I got accepted. And then one of the judges there reached out being like, hey, listen, you need to qualify like everybody else. We can't play favoritism and blah, blah, blah. So then I drove to Pennsylvania that day. I didn't peak. I didn't do anything. And went, stepped on stage, got a tan from a local place there, and took second place.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
You're just taking off your shirt randomly. And
yeah. That's kind of how it was. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I just sort of started growing, but transitioning into this business, when I had my gym, something that I always wanted was an HRT clinic attached to my gym.
And for the people that don't know, what is HRT?
So hormone replacement therapy. So essentially, getting your blood work done, being able to see if you're within an optimal range, and replacing what it is that you don't necessarily produce anymore. So I sort of always wanted something like that. I always learned about hormones. It was things that I always studied. It was part of the bodybuilding world. And there was a lot of strict rules in New York specifically, really only New York, that don't allow professionals to partner with non-professionals.
Don't allow in what respect?
So professional, essentially they don't want non-professionals profiting off of professional. Professional being a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, someone who had to go to school for that specific profession.
Got it.
I had spent a ton of money on my attorneys trying to find loopholes and go around it and blah, 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 blah. And then in, COVID starts to happen. I'm living in Midtown now at the Sky Building. And I was living with my buddy, Albie, and he had a friend, Mike, who was starting an HRT clinic, but a telemedicine clinic. And this was before COVID happened, and he was constantly asking me, reaching out, being like, I feel like you would be great with this, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, listen, I'm just so extended right now. This is when I still had the gyms. But at that point, I was so over it. Trying to stay in shape, training other people, doing 13 sessions a day to live the lifestyle that I wanted to live.
Add an hour apiece, so it's 13 hours a day alone.
Yeah, and then still getting my stuff in and, going back and forth, and I was getting hurt all the time. I still wasn't fully healthy essentially from, when I had prepped and whatnot, and it just got really hard. It was just getting harder and harder and harder, so that when COVID happened, I was actually so relieved because I was I finally got some rest, mandatory rest that I have no choice, and it just felt great. And then gyms were out of phase 3, going to phase 4. I'm freaking out, and then eventually, as we know, it took a long time for gyms to open up. So then I told, my buddy Albie, okay, I'll talk to Mike. I'm not doing anything right now anyway. You know, I'm okay, thankfully, but, you know, why not make a little extra cash? So we had an interview, started, you know, he started working with me. I was there for a week, trained me up. Second week, he lets me go. The first month, I was the highest selling, it's called the PCC. That's what we were called, patient care coordinator.
Yep.
The highest selling patient care coordinator for everybody else that's been there for months and months and months.
That's probably just because of your understanding.
Yeah, of everything. I already knew everything. Yeah. It was really just learning the process and the CRM. I sucked at technology. I never had to use Excel. I never had to use, Word. I just never had to use any of that stuff. I didn't know what a CRM was. Like I just, none of that stuff I had to use. I literally had my notebook, my calendar, my programs I would make on paper, or I would email it to them, or I'd write everything down. I was, old school like that. So I had to learn everything. I spent the whole week studying, staying up, freaking out, learning all this, computer savvy stuff. I didn't even have a computer. I had to, they mailed me one. Yeah. And I did everything from my phone mostly prior to that. But then after that first month, I was their highest sales rep essentially, but we're still coaching people, but it was just in a different way. And the way you get paid was off of commissions and stuff like that. And you were still
coaching other people too at the same time.
Yeah.
Were you still training people also?
I was doing like Zoom sessions and stuff like that. Okay. But yeah, and then I sort of just fell in love with it, and then it started growing and growing. And then the partners within, it was called Evolve, the partners within all separated. My buddy Mike separated from them. And I signed a non-compete stupidly. And I did that basically because he was my friend. Mike was my friend, and I didn't think that he was leaving. And then he left, and he wanted me to come, but there was strict rules against that because it wasn't in the state of New York; it was in Michigan. So eventually, I ended up leaving too, and I started my own. And I started my own. It was called Dynamic Health Solutions. And I was doing that for 2 years. I got.
What year is this? What year are we in right now?
So right now, this was in. We're in 2023 right now. This was 2021 and 2022. I started Elite in October, so this was all prior to that.
Okay.
And I was there. I was there for 2 years. So essentially, I found 2 investors. There was also a nurse there. The 4 of us partnered up. And they basically asked me to build this company for them, and they would financially back it or whatever. And that's exactly what I did. I had a whole staff. I built everything up. We had over, a couple thousand, 2,000 patients, and grew and grew and grew and grew. And then one of my investors, I won't say his name, but he was a huge none of us really liked him, and he always felt like he had something to say. He always felt like he needed to put his input. He always, would challenge every single thing that was happening, and things were working, but he felt like it wasn't working fast enough, or he wasn't being patient. And mind you, the capital investment that these 2 people had to put in was probably $40,000. And these 2 people are also insanely wealthy.
So like $40,000 to them was really
nothing. It was 20 each.
Yeah.
It was nothing.
Yeah.
And always felt like there should be more, but he never wanted to put more money in. Neither of them wanted to put more money in. Well, the other one, he would have if there was something to put money in for, but we were making so much that we were just sort of reinvesting everything, whatever. And then one day we had a partner meeting, we got into a huge fight. And this guy just lashed out and just started saying nasty shit about me, nasty shit about my now wife, Liana, derogatory shit.
You brought your wife into it, huh?
Yeah, literally. And he was just so angry. Just started spewing shit. And we all sort of fell apart after that consistently. He did apologize.
There's no coming back.
There's no coming back from that. You can't come back from that. And it literally made no sense. And he, the things that he said and brought up just had nothing to do with anything. And he even said he's like, I blacked out. I don't remember saying any of that. He's like, I was just so mad. And part of it was the fact that, he's saying that we should do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, well, we need more money. How much money I asked him, how much money did you put in as of now? And he's just like, why the that matter? And just like lost his shit. So anyway, we sort of declined after that. We brought in 2 other people to sort of take everything over. And essentially I took my business, got bought out. It was probably way more hostile than I'm explaining it now. But basically the way I was in control of everything, I literally ran everything. They had no idea about all this stuff. It was my business, literally. So I strategically put myself in a place where they couldn't move forward how they needed to, especially behind my back.
Without you.
Well, just behind my back. The idea was that we were all going to separate, but they were trying to do shady things, and I put myself in a way that they couldn't. At least they still did, but not in a way that would immediately screw me over. I wouldn't be able to be compensated for what it is that I needed. So on my honeymoon, I guess a year ago now, in September, I was on a boat with my wife and talking to attorneys and setting up a new LLC. I literally built Elite in the 10 days on my honeymoon. Came back, took all my business, held things hostage until I essentially got bought out, and started Elite in October. And I've been, trucking along ever since.
So it's just a year old, the business,
yeah.
Pretty much. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many clients do you have now?
Right now, to this date, I have about 1,800 clients.
That's wild.
Yeah.
1,800 clients in a year.
And I came on, I brought with me about 400 clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still. So
1,400 clients.
An extra 1,300, 1,400.
In a year.
Yeah. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Is it all just referrals? Did you do any ads or?
No, I mean, no ads. But we do have other ambassadors, but a lot of it is referrals and stuff like that. But I do have other people promoting. Social media is a huge, ticket item these days. So it's having the right influencers that are set in place to be able to promote the brand.
And what exactly is the business? Like what do you guys do?
So essentially it's a concierge telemedicine business. There's so many different ways to explain it, but we're essentially, a preventative and functional or integrative medicine practice. So I basically, I myself call myself a health liaison. So I created a platform essentially where I find the clients. I have contracts with LabCorp. I have contracts with different food testing and stress testing and just all different types of testing essentially for blood work and such. So I find the client, I get all the information that I need about your background, your health and whatnot. Then I'm able to guide you on which labs I think would be best for you. From that point, I would then send you an invoice for said treatment, or not treatment, essentially just the labs and the future doctor consult. Once you pay that, then I'm able to pay the pharmacy for that. I send you the lab order. You guys go in, get your blood work done. Once that happens, then I'll get the results populated into my portal because it's my contract with them and I have my special discounted pricing with them.
Yep.
So once that happens, I'll send you a link for a Zoom appointment. You and I will review everything in detail together so we have a better understanding of it. Then I'll schedule a call with the doctor consult. I have multiple doctors on staff. The one that I feel would be best with you paired up. You'd have the doctor consult. All three of us will be there together. The doctor would create a plan for you. Once that plan is put in place, I would then send you the invoice for it. Once that's squared away, I have contracts with about 7 different compounding pharmacies all over the country. Place the order with the pharmacies. They'd fill it and then mail it directly to your door. So that this way you only really have to leave your home once. That's if you decide to. We could also send you an in-home flebo in order to, do the lab work if you don't feel like leaving or if you're too busy to leave. But they'll mail it directly to your door. And then one of my nurses is going to reach out and do a medication review with you so they could teach you how to inject or make sure that all the labels are read correctly or answer any questions that you may have about the medication that you just got. Medication, supplements, peptides, anything.
You're pretty much able to prescribe anything that somebody needs.
For the most part, yeah.
Probably a big misconception with a lot is taking testosterone.
Yeah.
Right. And I know you're a big proponent of it. So
yeah.
What's the misconception and like what's the real deal?
So with testosterone, essentially, years ago, and these are a lot of the studies that doctors are being taught in school now. Granted, it's starting to change, thankfully for the better. But in the past, basically, all these focus groups that they did on testosterone therapy were sort of skewed. They wouldn't pick consistent focus groups. So everybody would be different. There'd be someone overweight, someone with heart issues, someone with diabetes, someone who's healthy, and a massive group of people, and they'd give all of them testosterone and see what would happen. And then what they found is that you had the guy who already has heart issues, didn't change his lifestyle, didn't do anything, just took hormones and affected himself. The person, same thing with high blood pressure or this or that, like all these other ailments that were going on. So they concluded that hormones weren't great. This was decades ago. Now they started doing tests, and they started creating better focus groups of regular people with heart risk, doing placebo, treatments and regular treatments, and they found that actually testosterone has no risk to your heart whatsoever. I mean, unless you're taking like a super physiological dose as if you were a bodybuilder or things like that. But that's not the goal here. The goal here is that, unfortunately, as the years go on, men in our society have less and less and less hormone production, less testosterone production. We're becoming more complacent or more sedentary or more, eating the wrong things or having all these lifestyle things that are coming into the mix, and our hormones aren't the same, and that affects us. Testosterone is what makes men feel like men. And when we have less of that, we don't feel like men. We aren't doing the roles that we're supposed to be doing. We aren't taking charge the way that we're supposed to be. And then there's also the health effects where if you have low testosterone, you could be an insomniac, stubborn weight gain, which isn't a good thing, deterioration of muscle tissue, which is a much worse thing, low sex drive, it affects your relationships, low erection quality, low blood flow. I mean, there's the list goes on of all the negative things that, having low testosterone does. So ideally what happens when you get to a certain point where these are your levels, then the idea is that we need to replace that. So that this way we're getting you feeling, functioning, and optimizing yourself at the highest capacity that you can safely.
And it's not just for men too, right?
It's for women also. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, women out there who, they suffer from all these different things and they're in perimenopause, which may not be the right time to do it, but menopause itself, I mean, menopause, that's literally, you're not producing hormones anymore. It's the women who get hysterectomies or, anything like that, where they get their reproductive organs removed. You're not producing hormones the right way. So replacing we have multiple sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. So replacing those will help you feel better. I mean, there's a reason why you feel great before menopause. Menopause happens, you're getting hot flashes. Sometimes your gums are bleeding. You have crazy insomnia, excessive weight gain, achiness, loss of memory, brain fog, like you just feel terrible all the time. And you go to a doctor and a doctor will just be like, well, this is sort of rite of passage, like it'll be fine. It's just life. This is how it works. If you really feel bad, I could give you like a Zoloft or an antidepressant. And that's just not the answer. It's quite literally the fact that I was once producing these hormones where I felt great and I felt young and I felt youthful. And yeah, I went through menopause, but people are living till 80 to 100 years old. So what, I'm supposed to just spend the next half of my life at 50 miserable? No. Why should you have to do that? There's a safe way to be able to introduce all those things and get you feeling like you used to and enjoy living.
So just by the sound of that, though, you're not just working with athletes. You're working with regular people on the day to day.
Yeah, I mean, I work mostly with regular people on the day to day. As far as athletes go, really, the people that I want is the bodybuilders that come on an off season to repair the damage that they did on season. But I mean, I do have a couple professional fighters that I work with. There are some athletes, but they're under WADA guidelines, which is like a drug testing agency, one of the strictest ones. So there's only a limited amount of things that I can do for them as well. But really what we're helping mostly is the day-to-day people. I do happen to help a lot of entrepreneurs because they want to be at that top peak level at all times, firing on all cylinders. But on the same time, again, it's mostly just, regular day-to-day people that just want to feel better. Something's wrong. Even the most disciplined person who's successful, I still wake up, I still exercise, I still go to work, I still do all the same things, but I could tell something's wrong because now I'm hitting the snooze button 4 or 5 times before I get up. Whereas before, I would pop up and I'd be able to go exercise right away and get myself ready and do all those things. But they're noticing these little subtle differences, and then you get your labs and you're like, oh, well, this is why this is happening.
Got it. And then as far as, working with people, the regular people on the day-to-day, the entrepreneurs, what's your oldest client?
My oldest client currently is 68 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So 60, and your youngest is?
My youngest client, they're not on hormones, but my youngest client is probably 23.
23?
Yeah.
So for that individual, it's you're probably just,
there's supplementation. Because we have a huge access to everything. There's peptides, there's supplementation, there's, all different things. It doesn't necessarily mean that they need hormones, even though there are situations where, kids come to us, young kids come to us, and they have zero hormone production, whether they thought that, they could buy a SARM over the counter, selective androgen receptor module to try
that
to,
was like a fad,
a huge fad, and everybody's like, oh, it's a safe thing to do, but people would literally crash their hormones, and young kids coming to us because their FSH and LH hormone, the luteinizing and follicle stimulating hormone, the hormones that your pituitary sends to your testes to essentially produce those, are completely crashed, and therefore they're not producing testosterone the same way. They mess themselves up that way, and then other kids who unfortunately, if they ever encountered, drug abuse and stuff like that, a very normal treatment is Suboxone, which essentially will, stop you from having any type of like opiate cravings. But one of the main side effects of Suboxone is that it completely shuts down all of your hormone production. So there are cases where we've had young people that come to us because of that, but the idea is not to give them testosterone. The idea is to get their pituitary and their testicles to sort of remember the function that they were supposed to be remembering.
Got it. And is there, so it's, going back to test real quick, is there a long-term effect to test? So like, for example, if, you have someone, that's relatively close to my age, I know we talked about this a couple of times. Is there any long-term effects from taking tests and the micro doses that you prescribe it to the day-to-day people?
No, to be honest, not really. It really just depends. I mean, as long as things in your lifestyle aren't changing, as long as your diet isn't changing, your exercise, it all is going to cater to the fact of what you're doing outside. It wouldn't be the testosterone itself that's causing the effect. There are short-term effects when you first introduce testosterone. Our body needs to maintain like a homeostasis, which means normality. So if we raise our testosterone, our estrogen is going to want to raise. Estrogen is just another sex hormone. It's actually very good that we have a healthy ratio of both of them. But every man has a different sensitivity to it, so we could have side effects if it gets too high, but there's a lot of fast-acting medication that you don't stay on for forever that'll help regulate that, and this way you'll start feeling better.
And that's why you do the blood work, though, every 6 months.
So you want to be able So you want to be able to do steady lab work so you can be able to see and test for all the right things and make sure everything is in the right component. But as far as being on testosterone long-term, there's no real bad side effects to it except for the fact if your lifestyle starts to shift.
You've really never had like a year where you, other than COVID, where you were just kind of just chilling, right?
Even COVID, no. I was chilling for, the first month, and that was because I like took that opportunity. And the city was like brighter, the air was cleaner, it was dead. I mean, I couldn't get anything at the supermarkets. It was, sort of post-apocalyptic, but it was also sort of a beautiful sight, and it was the first time that I ever really got to feel like I could rest a little bit.
But my point to mentioning that was like, you've got a so kind of talking about your relationship real quick. You're married now, right? How long have you guys been dating?
We've been dating, I guess, 3 years-ish. We went on our first date right before COVID.
Got it. So during that time, she's witnessed you, kind of at your best, your worst, and then kind of like the peak up.
We have that conversation a decent amount. So my wife is also an entrepreneur. She's a medical esthetician. We just came to Long Island, as you just mentioned before. We bought a home. We are building an aesthetics practice within a plastic surgeon's office, Pincus Plastic Surgery.
So you're also helping her build that business also.
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily helping her intentionally. I mean, she has mentioned multiple times the way that I motivated her from start to finish. And since I've known her, she's gone, she has, 80 plus different certifications within her field. She's gotten other things for, permanent tattoo and medical tattoos and doing 3D areola tattoos for women with breast cancer. I mean, she's literally stepped up her game drastically. And this is something that she told me. And I remember the first time that she mentioned it in front of friends. And it almost made me cry. It was literally like the most amazing thing that she could have ever said. But she's just, from meeting me, she saw me lose my gyms, come back, leave that place, leave Evolve, start again, build Dynamic, get screwed over with Dynamic, leave within a week, starting up Elite, been tail end since that, while building Elite, buying a home, doing a renovation, and, she's a huge part of my motivation, but this is just something that's sort of ingrained with me. It's part of probably is my dad's an entrepreneur also, but I have big shoes, I guess, to fill mentally. So I feel I love competition. So just constant competition.
Was there ever a point where it took a toll on the relationship, or was it
No.
Or she just always was just with you for the ride. And,
always with me
and
for
just
the ride.
stuck by you no matter what.
I don't think she ever had a doubt. She just saw what I was capable of. And it never took a toll. I remember when I first closed the gyms, her and her mom, they offered a place for me to live because they thought that I was going to be that bad. And I wasn't. I knew what I needed to do, sold my car, got rid of the apartment at the Sky Building, moved to Jersey, got a great luxury building there, but it was much cheaper. Worked from home, got everything that I needed to do, rebuilt, saved, took my PPPs, invested into stocks and crypto, and had some money saved there. But I just grew myself in a different way.
I mean, most people you'd probably say too would have a ton of anxiety rolling through. I think even myself, you know me, I'm manic about everything.
Yeah.
You know, so it just seems like you always just kept yourself into action, which
I love stress, to be honest. I've always been the first one into a fight, first one to rush into something. If I was ever scared of something, I remember when I went to Jamaica, and this is just like a small example, but this is just literally my personality, where we were driving and there's this place, I forgot what it's called, but there's a huge cliff, and no one was jumping off it, but like a couple of the locals, they would go and jump off of it. And we were driving a bus and we got pulled up, and I was with a girl at the time, and I saw one person do it, and it was massive. Like, it was just super, super high. And there was 2 levels that you could go off of. Everybody was going off the bottom level. I literally got off the bus, took off my shirt, dropped it on the floor, walked straight up to it.
In incredible shape.
Yeah, somewhat, I guess. And I just jumped right off immediately, the second that I got there, because it was scary. And so that's just literally always been my personality. If you are scared of it, I always say it's totally okay to be scared of something. It's what you do with that fear. You know, I mean, the same thing when I was fighting and competing and anything, you know, I just, the scarier was, I knew that I had to face it. And that's just something that's always been that way for me. I mean, I've been mostly on my own since I was 18. I moved out when I was 18, and there was a lot of crazy things that I had to do essentially to survive. So it was I just always knew that, you know, the only way out was always through.
Awesome.
Yeah.